Good morning. I have the lovely Lorraine with me. Hi, Lorraine. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Lorraine Mace. I've been writing for decades now. I'm primarily a crime writer. I've got 5 in my police procedural series, a couple of standalones, the latest of which came out last month. And I also write for children. I used to be the fiction editor for Writers Forum, and for over 12 years, I was the humour columnist for Writing Magazine. I live in Spain, and the weather is great. Sorry.
Fine. So we were supposed to do this initially on the day that your last book was released. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the latest book?
I will do. Okay. Funnily enough, I have a copy right here. It's called The Family Home, and it's based on the heroine is a character called Sally, who has been in a terribly abusive marriage for 20 years. But the abuse has escalated to such an extent that she knows she has to escape somehow, but she has no money and nowhere to go. But she was advised to contact her family, from whom she'd been estranged for many years, and start setting up a fund where she would have some money and somewhere to go. The book opens, without giving too much away, the book opens where the situation changes and she has to escape right now. So she ends up leaving with no money, and the only place that she can go to is the family home. But previously, when she tried to go there before her marriage, her father had told her she wasn't welcome and she was never to come back again. So the book deals with domestic violence. It does open in a marital situation with some domestic violence, but I haven't put a lot on the page. It's more, I think, in the reader's mind, knowing what could happen rather than actually writing what did happen. And it deals with the husband not letting go, stalking, but also there are secrets from the past that prevent her from being safe in the family home that is supposed to be her refuge. That's what the book's about.
It sounds quite dark.
Well, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. But then I write dark. The book before, the Guest, which was the one that came out last year, also deals with secrets from the past that sort of come to get you in the present. And I did a terrible thing in that book, apparently. I killed a cat. Not me personally, but I got an email from a very, very irate reader who said, I knew the moment the cat arrived on the scene that something terrible was going to happen to it, and how could you do that? And I thought, this is a fictional cat in a book of fiction. The cat hasn't, Schrodinger's cat, you at least know it's either alive or it's dead. It's in the box, one thing or the other. This is a fictional cat. Don't send me nasty emails because I killed a fictional cat. Anyway, I sent her, and she said, you wouldn't kill children in your book. So I sent her a very nice email back saying, thank you for contacting me, blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry I distressed you over the cat. However, in my second book, children die. And she didn't come back to me. I'm heartbroken. Anyway, on the subject of children, I do also write for children. Believe it or not, I do also write for children. It's fantasy, Vlad the Inhaler. And the reason it's Vlad the Inhaler is because he is 11 years old. He's a hupine, half human, half vampire. He's scared of the dark, asthmatic, vegetarian, can't turn into a bat, and he's disliked by the vampires, he's disliked by the humans, so he's got no friends, he's like this poor child. And then his parents disappear and his evil vampire relatives come swooping in, take over his castle, and he has to deal with that situation and save the village as well. So that's the kind of thing I write.
Okay. What came first, the children's or the crime?
Well, the first book that I finished was the children's book, but the first book that was published was the first in my crime series, which I also happen to have a copy of right here. What a surprise. Okay, Say Your Prayers. That's the first in the D.I. Sterling series, and that was the first book that I had published.
What was your journey to getting that published?
I was taken on by a digital first publisher who actually went to the wall in the end. And then I was lucky enough to be taken on by other publishers, and I'm now with Headline. My route to actually getting published, I suppose, was writing short stories for the women's magazine market. Then actually, the very first short story that I had published, going back into antiquity, I earned £300 for it. And I was so excited that I thought I need to do something sensible with it. So I actually took a Writers' Bureau course. I thought I'm going to learn how to do this properly. And the opening chapters of Say Your Prayers was actually one of the assignments for the Writers' Bureau course. Anyway, I later became a tutor for the Writers' Bureau and a columnist, and yeah, but now I just write novels. I don't do any of the other stuff.
Yeah, I imagine your time's pretty much taken up with that.
Absolutely, absolutely, because, well, you're a writer, you know, there are always ideas. I've got more ideas than I have time to write. I've got so many books started that will probably never be finished. Maybe they will be one day, but you know, I'm getting older now. I'm going to be running out of years soon, so I need to I need to decide which ones to work on next. But I get ideas wherever I am. Last year, my partner and I went to South Africa for a holiday, and we were in the Karoo. Now, the Karoo is this vast, vast area where there's pretty much nothing apart from scrubland. And we were staying in a cottage. To get to the cottage, it was a 2-hour drive over a dirt road, a rutted dirt road that you could only do in a 4x4. When we got to the cottage, there was no internet, no telephone, power only by solar panels. Absolutely gorgeous. But one of there was a group of 6 of us, and one of the women said, "This would be great. I could just be here all on my own, and I'd love it." And another one said, "Oh no, I don't think I would like it." And I said, "This is the perfect place to have somebody who is who is terrified for their life, knowing that someone is out there, wants to get them, and they cannot get anywhere near help." That's the one I'm writing at the moment.
Yeah.
See, that's
Are you exactly
other people, they look at things, they say, "Oh, isn't that pretty?" And I think that'd be a good way of killing somebody.
I think since I started writing, it's like a switch has been flipped on, and then now I see things all the time as well. And it's the
Mhm.
way I can really explain it is like, you know, some perhaps before I wouldn't have necessarily, but now I'm like, ooh. And yeah, I've got so many notes in my phone.
But now tell me, do you sometimes look at people and think, oh, killer or victim? Because I do. When I meet people for the first time, I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, if I was putting you in a book, would you be a victim or would you be a killer?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I don't tell them.
I was talking because my new colleagues are interested, and they were asking what I would write them as in a book, and so I was like, and it was really hard because I'm like, I really want to be honest right now, but yeah, you would die within the first few pages. You would be the
Exactly. Exactly. Don't annoy me. You'll end up in a book.
I keep threatening them with it. I don't think they believe me, but but it,
I did actually I've only done it once with a real person who, my Vlad the Inhaler book, she read a copy and she told me that I was evil, that she actually invited me round for tea so that she could tell me this. And she said, I want to talk to you about your book. And I thought, oh, that's nice. So I went round and she said, I want you to know that um, you are destroying children's minds because vampires are evil. And what's in that book? And she went on this whole rant about what children should be allowed to read, what they shouldn't be allowed to read. Anyway, I put her and her conversation, I used her dialogue word for word in one of the books. And then she had an unfortunate accident as she was crossing the road. In the book, not not in real life. I only kill people off on paper. Honest.
yeah. My one of my older school friends wanted me to put her in a book, and she doesn't know yet what she does, and I'm like, just remember it's a crime book, you know, so you're not going to be doing anything really nice. It's a crime book. So I haven't told her. She commits fraud, so yeah.
But don't you find that people who want to be in your books, they don't want to be the good person? When my nephew's wife, going back many years now, she said, "Oh, please put me in your book, one of your books." And I said, "Okay, well, you know, what would you like to be?" She said, "Oh, a prostitute." Oh, okay. You know, and other people know they want to be the killer, or nobody has ever said to me, "I want to be a nice person," you know? So maybe we've all got a dark side, and this is a way of getting it out. I know I certainly have a dark side.
Yeah. Um, it's really funny. I've been put in a few books as a named character. The first one I was a sex mad politician who took young boys back to my hotel room. And then the second time I sold myself because I couldn't afford to pay my bills. And I was thinking, what the hell? Like, what is going on here? The third time I was a policewoman, so that was fine. And then I think I'm in a book called Erotic Zombies in the UK, don't even ask. And then what else? Oh, and then I'm a retired teacher with dementia. So but I've never been a killer. I've never been a nice person either, particularly, I don't think. Well, maybe the retired teacher, I'm not sure. Just,
Well, look, at least you're getting an interesting life,
yeah.
even if it's in other people's books. Do you find that have many of your family members read your book or not yet?
Not one.
Okay, because my son who lives in Canada, he's got he's got a mug that on the outside it says, "My mum kills people for a living," and a picture of one of my books on the other side. And his colleagues asked, you know, could they read the books, which they did. And one of them said to David, how, you know, this is your mother. And he said, yeah, but when I'm reading, I have to pretend that they're written by somebody else, that they are not written by my mother. And I think, okay, yeah, good.
Yeah. And I think that the thing about that is sex scenes, isn't it? If I read a sex scene by an author I know really well, it's really awkward. Like it's just like, no, this is I can't. No.
No, you see, I'm okay. I do write sex scenes, but I sound like such a weirdo. I am a weirdo. I only write sex scenes that are bad, if you know what I mean. Not, I don't have any romance. Nobody is going, oh, love you, love you, love you. Let's go to bed, kiss, 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 and from there. These are somebody who is in a situation that they can't get out of, and the only person who is enjoying this sex scene is the bad person. I write that type of sex scene. So yeah, I guess I am pretty weird. I'm not, I'm definitely not going to win any awards for good sex.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Actually, I might have one of those in my book too.
Well, these things are always, how can I put it? They're based, our books are based on people, real people, not necessarily people we know, but people who are out there. And unfortunately, there are lots of weird people out there doing horrible things.
Yeah, and generally much worse than we write. You know, the truth is stranger than fiction. Even when fiction is quite unbelievable, sometimes the truth will always be it.
Well, I mentioned that the family home, I dealt with a lot of demons, if you like, from my past. When I was very young and living in South Africa, I was in an abusive relationship, which I managed to escape from. And as a result of that, I became a counsellor for abused women and children. And I worked in the refuge counselling women. What I heard there, I would never put in a book. It's actually, it's too bad. It's too horrific. And I write dark, but I wouldn't put those stories into a book because they're just too bad. So whatever we write, there is always somebody who is doing worse. I'm convinced of that. Sadly,
Yeah.
I think that's true.
Yeah, the killer in my book, a lot of her story is true, and she didn't mind me writing it. Obviously, I asked her first, and it was sort of a bit of catharsis for her as well. But she hasn't been able to read the finish.
No.
Close to height. She did read the scene, one of the scenes, and she cried. But yeah, so I've put her in acknowledgements, but more of that's true than people might realise. It's her story.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was fine with me using it. I mean, obviously, I guess it's like the surface. You know, I don't know all the details, but it felt nice to be able to share that as well. And you know, but yeah, unfortunately, it happens. It does happen. There's no from it.
I think if you look at sort of some of the infamous serial killers, and you think, how come, for example, Fred and
Rose.
Rose, thank you. Fred and Rose West, what they did, I mean, that is real horror story. That's not just crime. That is torture and just, I just think whatever I come up with, somebody somewhere is doing worse.
Well, I've been watching a series called Killer at the Crime Scene, and one that stuck with me is an old lady was found dead, but she'd had her heart cut out, and the killer had drunk her blood. And I was watching it thinking, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think this woman was in her 80s or something, and I don't think it was the only victim of this person, but they did find him. But I was just sitting there with my mouth open, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, some ritual thing. He had some silver bowls that was obviously some kind of, my goodness. And you write that in a book, and people think, nah, that never happens. It does.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The stuff that we write, that's come from our own heads.
Mm.
But there are people who actually have that real life stuff in their heads and think, oh, I'm going to go out and do that. You know, oh, horrible, horrible,
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah, thank God I don't have that. I just want to definitely do not have the desire to go off and do it. Oh, yeah, thankfully. When you wrote your first crime book, did you know it was going to be a series?
No, I actually wrote it as, in my mind, it was a one-off. I started it as a one-off. I finished it as a one-off, thinking, you know, I didn't want to. I was already writing children's books. I didn't intend to be a crime writer. But I realized once I actually got to the end, that there was more to Paolo's story. That's my D.I. Sterling. There was more to his family. There was more to the team that he built up around him. And they just wouldn't keep quiet. They wouldn't go away. You know, they're having conversations in my head after the book was finished. So I went back and wrote another 4.
As you
And
do.
there is still one more to come, one final Sterling book to come. But I don't know when.
I love this. I love asking this question. When you started writing your series, did you give any of your characters any tics or any mannerisms or any character traits that you've regretted as you carried on writing?
Oh, regretted, yes. I made one of my characters Irish. And I don't know why I did. And I keep forgetting, well, throughout the book, I kept forgetting that she was Irish. So when I was on the editing process, I'd actually have to make sure that that she sounded authentic. Unfortunately, I've got a lovely Irish friend who I'm quite sure would have told me if I'd sort of really. In fact, she was the one who said to me, "You don't say." Oh, hang on. Is it okay for me to swear?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. No, I don't know. I'm just being careful. You don't say, "Oh, fuck it." You say, "Feck." And of course, I then had to go and change all of that. But then when I was writing the next book, I forgot. I forgot that she was Irish. So yeah, I do regret that. In a way, I also regret making Vlad asthmatic. And again, it's my lovely Irish friend. Can I give her a shout out? Her books are brilliant. I think you know her anyway. Sheila Bugler. Yes, she is gorgeous. Anyway, she read the first Vlad book and said, "You've got the asthma all wrong." So she actually explained to me, you see, I thought I got it right because my dad was asthmatic. So I sort of went on what I had observed, where it's not the same as what somebody's actually experiencing. So knowing what somebody was experiencing, I was able to go and change it all. So
Yeah.
then I think they're really my only 2 regrets, because they're difficult. They're actually very easy, but I have to keep remembering.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I could totally get that. Ooh. I mean, you think you remember your major character Irish, wouldn't you? But yeah, I can see how easily it would be to forget.
Well, when I've got her in a scene, I'm not thinking, oh, and here comes the Irish lady. You know, I'm just thinking, oh, here's Cece doing whatever she does. And I have to keep reminding myself, she's Irish. She's Irish.
Oh, you have to put a note on your laptop, maybe a little sticker.
You watch now, somebody who sees this interview will read one of my books and say, well, you didn't get that right. I hope I did, but anyway, if I didn't, I didn't.
Yeah, it's done now, isn't it? When you do your own edits, or when your editor gets hold of your book, what are the things that you get told off about every time? What are the words you overuse most, or phrases you use?
Um, it's not so much the edits that I get back, the structural edits and copy edits, is not so much overuse. I write, you know, you've got overwriters and underwriters. I'm an underwriter in that I have to go back on, like my first draft is very, very light. The second draft, I'm putting in all of the settings and what people are doing. My first draft is pretty much dialogue. And then I tend to forget that people who are reading don't know what I know. So I will have somebody saying or doing something that just appears out of context. And the editors will say to me, Lorraine, you've actually got to explain this. And then I've got to find a way to bring it in that isn't the author's voice going, oh, and by the way, this is the case here, just so that you can understand. So I'm guilty of underwriting. So editors are always saying to me, you've got to put more in here, or you've got to put more in there. You know, Stephen King's book on writing, brilliant book. He says your first draft should be cut, I think it's by 10%. You should cut it by 10%. If I did that, all I'd be left with are the titles. You know, chapter 1, nothing. Chapter 2, nothing. I can't cut my first draft. I have to actually pad it. I have to put in all of the stuff that needs to be there. When I wrote Vlad, my late husband, he read it and he said, Lorraine, it's great, but this child goes from one side of the castle to the other and he doesn't see a damn thing on the way, nothing. You're not. And I had to then go and say, oh, this is, you know, he went into this room and fell over a suit of armor and, you know, all of this sort of stuff that I just don't put in that first draft.
Quite funny, actually. I love that. It sounds like it might be easier to edit, but I don't know, actually. Perhaps not.
Oh, I love editing. I do. I hate writing. Genuinely, I hate writing. I hate the mechanics of writing. I've got everything in my head. If I could just go, okay, brain, here, there, and then give it back to me and I'll edit, wonderful. But that actual writing, oh no, I don't enjoy it. I really don't enjoy it. But give me my own book to work on afterwards. Love it.
Yeah, I'm totally opposite. I hate editing. I don't mind the first edit where you take the rough draft of whatever the hell it's supposed to be and make it actually into a story. Then anything after that, I hate it. I hate every second of it.
Well, I always hate the final edits, and that's because by that stage I've read the book so many times. I've worked on it so often that I just think, oh God, who's ever going to want to read this? Because by that stage, you know, you're fed up with it. And I know I'm not alone in feeling that way. Other authors have sort of said the same thing. But I don't actually like reading my own books, mainly because I know what's, you know, there are no surprises for me.
Yeah.
I think, oh, I know why you're doing that.
How did you choose your character names?
With difficulty. I'm not good with character names and I'm not good with titles. I'm great with the actual stories, but character names, if they're foreign, no problem. I will go onto the internet. Let's say in the Say Your Prayers, the first book in the Sterling series, the crime syndicate, they're Albanian. So that was great. I went on and I found Albanian surnames and first names, most popular, that was easy. But I've used every family name, every friend's name. I'm stuck for English names, not good at it. So that also, I go onto the internet and I look at popular names and then try and work out, would that have been popular at the time that this particular character was born? It's difficult. For me anyway. How do you choose yours?
Yeah, so I used a lot of friends' names. My two main characters, I knew their names from the beginning. And then one of my characters changed her name about 6 times because it just wasn't right. I just didn't.
Right.
Then it was too similar to something else when I changed it. Then I had to change it again, and then it wasn't right again. And I'm like, yeah, and it took me 6 attempts, I think, and looking on the internet as well. But oh my god, it was so hard.
It is. I find it really, I find, as I say, titles, I leave that up to the publisher. I use a working title, and every time the publisher changes the, did you hear that? Motorbike going past.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah,
Yeah. Every time the publisher changes the title, which I'm fine with because I am not good at picking titles.
yeah. The book, my title, isn't mine. One of my friends said, "Why don't you call it that?" I was like, "Oh, no, okay, that sounds all right." And then the publisher kept it. But yeah, I had no clue.
Yeah.
I could write all those, hundreds of thousands of words or thousands of words, tens of thousands, I should say. Title, even after I finished it in edit, I had no idea. I'm like, I really don't know what to call this damn thing. I have no clue. Yeah.
Until I'm just think when I found out, it was only a few months pre-publication that I found out what the title of my latest book was. Because for me, I've given you the book, I'm rubbish with titles, it's entirely up to you. I'll go with whatever you say. And fortunately, the title fits the story. I would never have come up with that. That to me, but it's the simplest titles I think that work well. Like the book last year, the guest, that totally encapsulates if you like, the sense of menace and everything else. I wouldn't have thought of that. I was going for something much more complex, much more complicated.
Yeah, I like clever titles that have sort of got a few meanings as you read. You think, ooh, that's clever because it links back. I mean, the only thing about my title is it's unique. Definitely no other books called that. So, but yeah, I don't mind. I wasn't bothered as long as someone else done it for me. It was fun.
Yeah. Well, the thing with the first in the crime series, this one originally, I titled Bad Moon Rising, thinking, oh, that's really clever. And the publisher went with it. So, that was the publisher then. And then it turned out there are about 50 million books called Bad Moon Rising. So that was really a poor choice. Because if you put it into Amazon, I was like on about page 5 with all of these Bad Moon Rising titles that have been out there, for decades, probably since Amazon started. So learn my lesson on that one. Go for something original if you can. And if not, something that really does encapsulate the story.
Yeah, it sounds like a very romantic kind of. I can imagine the sort of romance used in Bad Moon Rising quite a lot. Seems
Well, actually, the romance, fantasy, particularly vampires and werewolves, science fiction, you name it. Every genre uses Bad Moon Rising.
okay. I shall note that for future.
Don't use it. It's not a good one.
I mean, I doubt I'll be any better at choosing titles anyway. So as long as there's always someone there to do it for me, that's fine.
Well, your publisher should help you with that. I'm sure they will.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Because I mean, funnily enough, the next book, the one I'm writing now, I've got a title, but I mean that could change anyway. But yeah, I don't know. It's so hard.
Yeah. Well, the one that I'm working on at the moment, the standalone psychological thriller that I'm working on at the moment, is it's got a working title of The Karoo Killings. It's not bad, I think. It's okay. I'm quite sure a publisher's going to go, no. So, but as long as I've got a working title, that's fine.
Yeah, you need to be able to call it something, don't you? Mine was just called, I think, book one. That was it.
Well, I'm also working on a new crime series, and I've the I don't know if it's going to be the series is called, but the first book I've called Forced Out, because the main character is a policewoman who's been accused of colluding with the local crime lord. She hasn't, but she's been set up. And by the end of the book, she's decided she doesn't want anything more to do with the police force, and she sets up as a private investigator. So I've got Forced Out for the first book, and I've got the outlines for books 2 and 3, and they are literally just book 2, book 3. Because it was bad enough coming up with a title for the first one without thinking about titles for the next 2.
Yeah, they might occur to you as you write them, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I've given up hassling about titles. The publisher can deal with that. They're better at it than I am.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was nice that mine stuck with the title. Obviously, I couldn't think of anything better either. But then, yeah, so my friend will now always know that he chose that title, and that's it.
Well, that's brilliant. Did you acknowledge? Did you give him a mention in the acknowledgements?
I did, although I can't remember if I mentioned that he chose the title, but he read it from the very beginning and all the way through as I rewrote it and stuff. So yeah, he had to get an acknowledgement really because he was encouraging from the beginning. But I had a really bad habit, probably still do, of writing did instead of done. So I've written that in the acknowledgements because I thought it might make him laugh.
Yeah.
I have a sticker right here on my laptop that says did not done and not underneath. And I probably still do it because I forget when I'm writing. But yeah, his for God's sake, I've told you so many times it's did. Not
Well,
done.
if it's in dialogue, it doesn't matter. It's when it's in the narrative that,
Yeah. So yeah, I had to search and go and change them all. But yeah, I thought it might make him laugh when he reads acknowledgements because yeah, he did tell me every time. He was like, "You're still doing it." I'm like, "Okay, sorry, I'll go and change that fella."
it's really hard to change bad habits. If it's, I don't mean bad habits as in like you're doing something wrong, but there are certain things that are just ingrained in us. We've always said or always done. And then when you come to write, you think, oh, somebody points it out and you think, oh, really? Is that what I do?
Yeah,
But you carry on doing it.
I figured that, if I do it, I do it and I'll just change it in the edit. That's fine. I'm not going to stress about it. I do sometimes see and then go back and change it, but most of the time I just write in a way and if I write did, then I write did, then I'll just change it. It's fine.
What I do is that I only read what I've written the day before, just to get myself back into it. And then I will only read the final, all of it in one go, once I've written the end. So each day, which is probably why I miss out stuff, because I'm not going back to the beginning every time. But I'd rather put the stuff in at the end, on the edits, than drag myself down like every chapter has to be perfect, because first draft it doesn't. Just get it written.
That's it, yeah. I've seen a few people say that they sort of leave it in the middle of a chapter or in the middle of a sentence, and when they pick it back up again, they can sort of get into their mindset quicker.
Well, what I do is when I stop writing, I'll actually write 2 or 3 sentences about what's going to happen next. So that I'll read over what I've done the day before, but then I've also got those few sentences that remind me what was in my mind, because otherwise I'll get to that point and think, well, then what was I going to do?
And stuff's happened as well, hasn't it? You've lived your life in the day, and then your mind could go off.
It's gone. So those couple of sentences are really very useful.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually. But yeah, generally I don't know what I'm writing when I'm writing it, so I've got no chance of knowing what I was going to write next.
No, I generally know what I want to happen in a chapter. But that's today, I know what I want to happen in a chapter. If I didn't put the little reminders at the end, genuinely, I'd look at it and think, well, where was I going with that? Particularly if I've broken off in the middle of a scene, you know, and it hasn't actually reached the important part of the scene.
Yeah. If you were able to spend a day with any author, dead or alive, who would you like to spend a day with?
Ooh. Harlan Coben.
Okay.
I think he must have the twistiest mind of anybody. I love his books. I've read all of his books. You know, for me, he is the one author who is always able to surprise me. And I see Netflix are making some of his books into television, not series. Yeah, I suppose it's a series. And even though I've read the books, I'm still looking at this and thinking, wow, oh, what's going to happen next? Yeah, I'd love to spend a day with him. And one other author that I'd quite like to spend a day with is John Lescroart, purely for one reason. When his first huge success came, and I can't remember which book it was with, he was asked, how does it feel to be an overnight success? And he said, it feels great. It's only taken me 19 years to get here. So I like that response. I like that mental attitude. But yeah, if I could spend a day with Harlan Coben and just see how his mind works, I'd love to see how he actually works. Does he plot from start to finish? Does he have just a general idea in his mind? You know, what's his process? I'd love to know.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Really.
think who's someone I've met, because I've met so many authors now, but I don't think I've met him.
Well, if you do, could you just say, Lorraine would like to know. Lorraine would like to know, how does your mind work?
It's funny, I met Lee Child last year, and you know, he's like, it's Lee Child, and there's so many questions you could ask him. And we genuinely ended up talking about how he grew up in Birmingham and the streets and the stuff he used to go to in his life as a child. It was really lovely. But
that's nice.
And he was so down to earth and so cool and stuff. But yeah, nothing about writing at all. Just his childhood and stuff.
Well, I would imagine that the really famous writers are sick to death of talking about their writing. You know, I suppose because they're interviewed so often, and there's actually a limit to what you can say about your own work and your own process. So maybe if I got to know Harlan Coben, I wouldn't ask him about his process. I just watch. What are you doing?
About his childhood, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I must admit, because I go to most of the festivals in the UK, there are some people that when they're interviewed, I don't really bother, because I've seen them interviewed so many times. I know the questions, I know the answers. There's no point. Generally, I don't learn anything new, so I don't bother. You know, as much as I love the author, which generally I do, I know what they're going to be asked, because it's always the same thing. So yeah, that's why I try and ask different questions if I can. and catch people. I asked
Yeah.
Lee and Andrew Child were being interviewed, and I asked them if they were fictionally murdered, would they want Reacher to save them and investigate their case, or would they want someone else? And they both said Boss. If they were fictionally
Ah,
Boss.
yes. You see, now I'm thinking Harlan Coben, Michael Connolly. Now, because I love Bosch. I I I read the Bosch books out of sequence, which was really frustrating. But I have since, many years ago now, read them from the beginning right the way through. Oh, and the way the characters develop is just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I was quite surprised actually, because most authors say their own characters. But yeah, they both said Bosch. And I was like,
Mm.
yeah, hopefully I threw them and asked them a question they've never been asked before. So and I'm quite known for that now. So if people hear that question, they know it's me.
Yeah, good thing.
So I'll ask you if you're fictionally murdered.
Mm. I mm. If if yeah, Bosch, without a doubt, I would want him to be the investigator. But if I was in legal jeopardy, I would want Dismas Hardy to represent me in court.
Interesting. Okay. If you're able to travel to any period of time, either forwards or backwards, where would you go? Just to visit.
Just for a visit or to spend time?
Well, like a day, I guess, or a week maybe. Have a look around and get to know it. Mm.
I think probably the Regency period. I grew up devouring Georgette Heyer. In fact, that when I first felt that I wanted to be a writer, I wanted to write like Georgette Heyer. Two problems. First of all, I didn't know enough about the period to actually be authentic. And secondly, I hadn't realized how much work goes into writing a book. I'm talking now, I was in my early 20s at the time that I decided I was going to be a writer. Hadn't a clue how to start. Wanted to write about a period that I didn't know enough about. And I also wanted to emulate somebody who was absolutely brilliant in her particular genre. So it was like three strikes against me to start off with. But yeah, if I could go back in time to spend a bit of time, then yes, I would want to go back to the Regency period, but I would want to be somebody with money. I would not want to be anybody below stairs because their lives were absolutely atrocious. But above stairs, oh yeah, I'd love that.
Like the dresses and the easy life and just sitting and reading or sewing or
And the ball gowns and
and
going out for carriage rides and oh no, it would be nice. It would be nice. But I think I'd get bored after a while. I think I would.
you can read a lot, can't you? So I mean, my TBR is going to outlive me. So if I could not work and read, and then go to a ball occasionally, I don't think I might be all right with that.
Yeah, but I'd be quite happy reading. But you can't read. I'm a writer and I shouldn't be saying this. You cannot read all day, every day, forever. You have to have a life outside of that. And a woman in that period was so constricted with what they could do and couldn't do. They were still the property of their husbands. And look, I had a tiny taste of that when I went to live in South Africa. Um, I'd come from the UK where I had my own bank account. I'd always had my own bank account. I'd worked. I was an independent woman in as much as I could be at that time in the UK. We went to live in South Africa and I went to open a bank account. So I go into the bank and say, oh, I want to open a bank account. And they said, are you married? And I said, yes. And they said, when will your husband be able to come and sign for you? And I said, sorry, what do you mean come and sign for me? I couldn't open a bank account at that time. And we're talking 1979, 1980. So it's not that far back in time. I could not open a bank account without my husband's permission. And that didn't change until about the mid 80s. So it still continued for, a few years after I was there. What they call it, the Married Woman's Property Act came in, I think about 86, 87. Up until then, you could not do anything without your husband's permission. So I didn't like that. So I don't think I'd do very well in the Regency period, but I would love to wear the nice clothes and, go out.
By visits, okay. You
Yeah.
can it for a bit and then go back to normal life and being independent. Yeah, that's true, actually. What was I just going to ask you? Oh, research. Do you have to do a lot of research and how do you go about it?
Okay, I do a lot of online research. Obviously, I live in Spain. It's library access is limited, but I have a great police friend. Well, she's now ex-police, but she reads through to make sure that I haven't got anything terribly wrong from the police procedural side of things. I also have a doctor who I call Dr. Death, because he tells me whether or not I can do something that I want to do. For example, in book 3 of the crime series, Pins and Needles, I wanted to use embalming fluid to kill people. And my Dr. Death said, no, you can't do that. And he suggested that I use insulin because he said you would be amazed how many people die of natural causes that if it was actually investigated, if there was a reason to investigate it, could quite easily have been murdered with insulin. Because if it's injected sort of in there, between the fingers or between the toes, it's not picked up. And because insulin is a naturally occurring substance in our bodies, unless there is a reason to look into it, the murderers will get away with it. So I thought, oh, that's great. I like that. So I'm not giving anything away because it's actually on the back of the book. All of the murders in Pins and Needles are with insulin, an insulin overdose. So my most of my research is online. Oh, and then I don't know if you do research online, but go down rabbit holes. Oh, some of the things that I've started off looking, let's say, for example, how long a healthy teenager would last in a dungeon situation with these sort of injuries. And the next thing I know, oh, I'm reading about stuff that I really, really don't want to know. So yeah, research mainly online, but then I have 2 good friends who tell me if I've gone wrong somewhere.
I think you need that, don't you?
You have to.
Yeah, I had an ex-policeman who's quite well known in the crime community read mine, and then because I thought it was funny, I wrote him in the book as a fireman. It tickled me. Yeah, because I'm older. It still amuses me.
Does he know? Does he know he's a fireman?
Yeah, he read it, so
okay.
Yeah, he said a gentleman fireman. I can't remember what he said. He was the ex head of policing of Brighton and Hove, and he said, "I hope the guy that you wrote this about reads it and looks over his shoulder for the rest of his life." I was like, "You can't say that. You're ex-police. What's wrong with you?" I was like, "Well, yeah, actually, so do I." So yeah,
No, I'm looking forward to reading your book.
yeah. I just hope it lives up to everyone's expectations now. Slightly terrifying. That would be fine. Yeah.
It is terrifying. It is. It's your baby and it's out there, and people will be either loving about it or they'll be horrible about it or they'll be indifferent. You've actually just got to stand back from that, because once you let it go, it's no longer your property. It's whatever the reader gets from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not everybody's going to love it. Not everybody's going to love it.
No. Yeah, I am prepared for that. Thankfully, that's fine.
I mean, the book that came out last year, The Guest, I call that my Marmite book, because people either love it and rave about it, 5 stars, best thing I've ever read, or rubbish reviews. There are very few in the middle. It really is a Marmite book. People love it, love it, love it. I don't like this at all. So, you get that as well. You just got to roll with it.
Yeah, not much longer to wait and find out. Well, I don't think I have any more questions for you, unless you think there's anything really obvious that I haven't asked you that you want to tell us.
I don't think so. I've had a lovely chat with you. It's been really enjoyable. I've had the chance to plug all my books, which is absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much. I would really love just to say one more thing about the family home, if I may.
Yeah, hold it up
It's
as well. Yeah.
right. This one. If you are a NetGalley reviewer, it's still on NetGalley for I think just a few days more. If you've read it, please, please, please go on to Amazon. Even if you didn't get it from Amazon, please go on to Amazon and Goodreads and leave a review. I will love you forever. And that's it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much.
And thank you. Thank you for having me and for the lovely questions and the great chat.